Did you think that slavery and ensuing Jim Crow laws had a lasting impact on the black community in the United States?
Some, and that's a good question. So if you correlate all the impact of Jim Crow and slavery, I would say that you could generously say 26% single motherhood in the black community in the 1960s. So about 26% of all black babies born in the 1950s and 1960s were born to a single mother. Now it's 77%. So I would ask you, why did it jump 50 points, 50%, since the Civil Rights Act as America got significantly less racist?
So that's fine. I don't know why it jumped. Who cares? But
Well, it wasn't slavery or Jim Crow. It
No.
was something else.
So the only lasting impact that slavery had on the U.S. was that less black families had fathers.
No, not necessarily. But have you ever known anyone that's owned a slave?
No, but I know a few presidents who did.
You know them personally? So you know anyone that was ever a slave?
Well, no, because So okay, I don't know anyone who was a slave. So it had no impact?
No, it had some impact. The question is, did it have an impact that is measurable and significant enough now in 2021, where we saw a key metric that influenced the livelihood of the black community, like single motherhood rate, that as America got less racist, all of a sudden now 77% of black babies are born without a father, where before it was 26%. And I suppose the question is this, because this is the question about systemic racism, right? What law that is in practice today actively discriminates against black people?
So here's what I would say to that. The idea of capitalism and America, like you said, is it doesn't matter who you are, show me what you got, is fresh start. So what would happen if you had like 150 years in a country for your family to build wealth, to own a house, to have a job, to get college education for your kids, to build generational wealth? And then you took another family who didn't have the opportunity to do any of that for 150 years and then set them off on the same even starting point. Is that really an even starting point? And would that not result in some kind of systemic disadvantage for those people?
The black middle class was the fastest growing demographic in the 1940s and 1950s until the Great Society Act and that intervention. It's very tempting to do what you're doing. And I'm not faulting you for it, because you've probably been propagandized to believe it. And that's okay, because I think you're actually a victim in this case, because you've been misled to want to believe that things you never lived under, never understood, and that I think you are partially seeing had a disproportionate impact in the world that you're living in today. So for example, if that were to be true, then first-generation immigrants would not be able to make good choices and move up the ladder in this country, which I think we have some first-generation immigrants here tonight. Now, let me say this, that this idea that America is systemically racist to the core would also be quickly debunked by the fact that more blacks have legally immigrated to America since the 1980s than ever were here brought as slaves. Over 2 million blacks from the Caribbean and from Nigeria and from Western Africa have come here to America. So the question is, why is it that in every statistic that you could probably rattle off, are black people doing worse than white people? What is it? Well, I would point to the fact that fathers are not in the home, because it was 26% of black females in the 1960s were single mothers. Now it's 77%. If you look at the Brookings Institution, a liberal think tank, there are 3 things you need to do to stay out of poverty in America. Number 1, graduate high school. Well, because of public sector unions and the dominance of our government schools, that's harder than ever in far too many communities. Not just black communities, not just Hispanic communities. The second thing, get a job, any job. And the third thing is to obviously not to commit crimes, but to try to get married before you have children. And so some of what I believe has contributed to the downfall of some of these communities has nothing to do with white people with the neck on black people. Instead, it's the following. Fathers no longer being in the home, the rise of sexual anarchy that came in post-1960s liberalism that removed this idea of sex being confined to a marital relationship, to be gratuitous and everywhere. All of a sudden you've seen an increase in not just the birth rate, but the single motherhood rate and abortion alongside of it. I would just ask this question, I'm just curious. How much do you think outputs are based on people's decisions, based on the advantages they're born into?
I mean, as someone who's taken Introduction to Sociology, your life is greatly influenced by what the conditions you're born into. But I promise this will be the last thing. Just, you say there's less fathers in the home of, many black families,
yes.
And that's the issue. So what do you think is keeping fathers out of the home in those?
It's a great question.
Do you think it could be over-policing and police arresting, disproportionately?
We went through this, everybody.
Do you think it could be law enforcement disproportionately enforcing laws in black neighborhoods and arresting more black males than any other demographic?
So blacks are actually under-arrested and under-policed per the percentage of crimes they commit. We talked about some of those numbers. But let me tell you one thing in particular. In the Great Society Act, we decided as a civilization to subsidize single motherhood. In the 1960s, we told black women, you no longer need to be married to have children, you can get married to the government. And we saw a dramatic escalation and increase of the deterioration of the nuclear family and a replacement of that of the nanny state and the welfare state. And I would say this, that every single activist group that steps up, that talks about systemic racism and oppression, if you look at the data, purely the data, if there was a movement to put black fathers back in the home and to try and challenge the sexual anarchy that came in the post-1960s and had a more prudent and pious view of sexual relations in America, which is a very unpopular view, by the way, for most Americans, but it's true that before the 1960s, sexual relations were, at least culturally, supposed to always be confined to marital relationships. The more gratuitous that we have been in trying to catalog it in media and in pop culture and in Hollywood and yes, in schools, then all of a sudden you have seen people say, well, why do I need to get married for that? Marriage is the bedrock institution, and strong families create strong communities, which create strong civilizations. And this is why immigrant communities that have come to America, and first-generation immigrants, they're able to move so quickly up the socioeconomic ladder because they might not have wealth, they might not have big bank accounts, they might not own a lot of land, but they have the thing they know that will keep them together, which is a family that will not be broken up at any means necessary. I'll finally say this. Let me just say this. No, I want to thank you for coming because it took courage to ask that question. I'm just going to ask you to do one thing. Please forget everything you learned in Introduction to Sociology 101 because it was likely all garbage. So thank you so much.
Wow, that's a very interesting one, listening to Charlie Kirk, of course, dialoguing this very college student that was talking about the things that this black community really need. And of course, in making reference with in the 1960s, 70s, and what that is currently happening in nowadays. Of course, we look at the increase in the single motherhood in America, and then people could say that when America, we are much racist, things in the single motherhood was not much compared to what that is currently happening right now, because it is being rated around that over 70% at the moment. But then one thing that I want to add up is Charlie Kirk, of course, I am of course from the black race, so I want to say this to you as being the causes why the number will keep increasing. I think that American government are making a mistake by supporting this social program to support this single motherhood, even though they may see it as a solution to support some of these mothers. But then to me, I would say that it is wrong for the government to be giving out some of these social programs to the single motherhood, because in the process of doing so, they think that they are doing it in order for them to show support and then maybe probably to elevate them. But in the other way around, I am saying that it tends to encourage, you understand, the men to get these women, you understand, pregnant and abandon them. Because by so doing, by bringing all this support, has it reduced the numbers? No, the number keep going high. And why do you think the number is going high? It's because some of these black men believe that when they get them pregnant, the government are going to intervene through some of these social programs in order to support some of these single motherhood. Does it reduce the numbers? No, the number keep going high. So I will say, or I would like to say this to Charlie Kirk, that if possible, communicate this to President Donald J. Trump. Of course, this is power of social media. I know that maybe probably Trump might see this very video. So if it to be possible, cancel the social, you understand, program for the single motherhood. For therefore it tends to increase the numbers, and then therefore single motherhood, in a sense, keep increasing, and they keep giving birth to children who their fathers will not be there to take care of them or raise them, you understand, with two parents. And then we all know the effect, you understand, it do have with some of these children when they grow without both parents. Of course, we know where they normally end up. So I would say that Trump should cancel it. And the reason why I'm saying that he should cancel it is because there are some of these black men, of course, whether they are working or something, but the government tend to have a way of having these programs, intervention, and then for every American citizen. So if a man got a woman, you understand, pregnant, then I would say that Trump should rather, the money that they are supposed, that these very young men or these black men, you understand, are gaining, that this money should be given to the woman in which, you understand, the man get her pregnant and then don't want to take care of her. I believe that if they enforce some of these laws, you understand, on the black men, it will make them to become responsible, because at that point in time, whatever benefit or whatever they're supposed to be gaining from the government is not taken away from them, and then therefore giving it to the woman in order for her to be able to take care of herself, and then also likewise of the child. By so doing, it will make the men to tend to behave themselves and then tend to be responsible. I am a black man and I know why I am saying so, and I think that is actually a solution. But in the moment you keep on, in a sense, supporting some of this single motherhood, it does not, in a sense, solve the problem. It's rather make some of these men to keep on getting them pregnant and then decide not to be responsible. But immediately they got to realize that whatever amount of money that I am gaining at the end of the month from the government, some of these things are being taken away from me. So at that point in time, he will tend to be to be responsible, and to be responsible of their own action. So I think that by so doing, it will be better. Else otherwise, some of these things will keep happening, and then people will keep thinking that maybe probably the whites, you understand, are not treating, you understand, the black people, you understand, fairly, and then there's no a level ground, you understand, between them and all those things. But at the end of the day, that's not true. Because at the end of the day, I'm not also saying that there are no white men that will be getting women, you understand, pregnant or things like that. But these things, you understand, happen much in the black community. So I think that if Trump look at some of these things, I believe that it can be able to help to reduce the numbers of these single parent in America. Of course, I know that a lot will have thought and opinion concerning this, and some could totally disagree with me, but of course I still want to see your thought and opinion at the comment section, and may God bless you as you do so. So this is the end of my video. If you like my reaction, should like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any video you want me to react to, don't forget to drop it at the comment section and I'm going to check it out. So you remain blessed, and I see you in my next video. Goodbye.